Hi, fellow G0REWH0RE besties. Welcome back to another episode of G0REWH0RE. I'm so sorry that I haven't been around. I was out for surgery and I was focusing on healing and getting better, and now I'm back. I'm feeling great and I'm so excited to get into it. I have a lot of requests that I'm working on still that I am hoping to get into a routine of posting at least 1 to 2 days a week. I will work on that as well. Super excited. Hopefully I'll be having a co-host soon. My cousin has expressed an interest in doing podcasts with me, so I'm super stoked about that and cannot wait to get that going. We're going to be talking about a real creep named Harrison Graham. He was dubbed the Cookie Monster Killer, and his case remains to be one of the most disturbing serial murder stories in Philadelphia history. I do want to say that viewer discretion is advised as normal. Do your own research. What I find doesn't mean that you'll find the exact same thing. I am super stoked, and let's get into it. So, Harrison Frank Marty Graham, he was born on September 9th, 1959. He's an American serial killer who murdered 7 women in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania between 1986 and 1987. Keeping the remains in his apartment. He still claims to this day that he doesn't remember most of his murders or tries to blame it on alter ego. We're going to go over all of those different types of things for this case as well. He was found guilty in 1988 on all charges and sentenced to death, but his sentence was later changed to life imprisonment. He was called the Cookie Monster Killer because of his childlike obsession with Sesame Street. Apparently, his apartment was just filthy. It was disgusting, but it was decorated with Sesame Street posters and toys. He was born on September 9th, 1959 in Philadelphia. He was the oldest of 5 children, but from an early age, he struggled with intellectual disabilities, discipline issues, and poor academic performance, where he had eventually dropped out of high school. His mom claims that he had spent some time in a mental health facility in the early 70s, but this was never verified. And it might be that he was a minor, so there's not going to be any documentation or history on that either. He ended up entering in the workforce into construction, and he found himself in North Philadelphia, where he was surrounded by crime and poverty. By the early 80s, he had developed a substance abuse problem and began spending time among different drug dealers, pimps, and prostitutes. But despite his surroundings, Graham was never known for violence. He rented an apartment on a 3rd story, in a near abandoned complex, and he just did his own thing. But he was setting up and known for a drug market in the apartment parking lot. Over the years, his home became a drug den, primarily for Ritalin and other substances. However, everybody around him knew him as just a non-violent man. He paid his rent, he played basketball with the local kids, he lived off his disability pension, and just carried a Cookie Monster around everywhere with him. While his lifestyle was chaotic, they just considered him to be quiet and kind, and they really enjoyed having him around. But by the summer of 1987, the residents of the North Philadelphia apartment complex that he shared had grown extremely suspicious. A disgusting foul odor seeped from Graham's unit, prompting numerous complaints to the landlord about that disgusting foul smell. Graham ignored the concerns, got into an argument with some people, and that's when everything just went downhill from there. His landlord demanded him to leave on August 9th, and he took an extremely drastic action. He boarded up his front door, he gathered all of his belongings, and he escaped through the fire escape. Disappearing. Couldn't find him. The landlord and police were finally able to break in, and what they discovered was absolutely horrifying. The apartment was essentially what they called a makeshift tomb. Inside, officers found a naked corpse, a partially dressed body, bloodstains, drugs, piles of garbage, and just filthy mattresses. But that was only the beginning of what they found. In the closet, there was skeletal remains. On the roof, there was a green duffel bag that was filled with human bones. And in the basement, there was more decomposed body parts. In total, 7 women had been murdered, and with forensics exams revealing strangulations as the cause of death for 2, and severe decomposition, making it difficult to determine the death of the other ones. They determined that all of Graham's victims were Black women that were struggling with and addiction. Back in Pennsylvania during this time, it was a demographic that was often overlooked by society and law enforcement. And they said that if these women had better access to addiction treatment, shelter, and protection from dangerous environments, they might have been able to escape their circumstances before ever crossing paths with Graham. It's extremely unfortunate. So, since he just took off running, a manhunt began. Over the next week, he had reportedly been seen at fast food restaurants, public transits, homeless shelters, stores, but he kept dodging them every time that he would be found. Finally, on August 17th, his mom actually convinced him to surrender and turn himself in. Just 10 blocks from the scene, he was arrested. At the station, as soon as Graham got there, he immediately confessed, stating that he had strangled all 7 women after sharing drugs and having sex with them. His first known killing was in 1986, and he admitted to murdering the second victim because she had found the body of the first victim. I'm going to go over all of the victims' names as well because I always want to bring light to who is most important, and that is the victims. I apologize in advance if I butcher any of their names. I never mean any disrespect. His victims later identified was Cynthia Brooks, Valerie Jameson, Mary Jeter Mathis, Barbara Mahoney, Robin DeShauser, Sandra Garvin, and Patricia Franklin. Investigations began deep into the life of Harrison Graham, his life of substance abuse, violence, and hidden darkness that no one had seen until it was too late. But after his shocking arrest, everyone was just so surprised. Like, again, I said, they thought he was just the most kindest man that they could have had around. Even though he confessed to 7 brutal murders, the legal battle over his fate had just begun. His trial was held in 1988, and it was just such a chilling examination of mental illness, drug addiction, and violent crimes, and whether Graham deserved life or death in prison. His defense team argued that Graham was mentally impaired, suffering from intellectual disabilities and possible schizophrenia. They claimed that he was not fully responsible for his actions and should be spared from the death penalty. The prosecution, however, painted a completely different picture. He was a serial killer who preyed on vulnerable women, strangling them and leaving their bodies to rot in his apartment. And unfortunately, I agree with the prosecution. He took the lives of 7 women. He did plead guilty, but still showed zero emotion to the details of his crimes as they were laid out in front of him in court. He just did not seem to, it didn't faze him at all. The horrific crimes, and he just didn't care. But that's a serial killer psychopath for you. So, as I said earlier, initially Graham was sentenced to death, but due to his mental conditions, his sentence was later reduced to life in prison. And this decision sparked debates. Was justice truly served, or was a murderer given leniency due to a mental illness? Supporters have been arguing that executing a mentally impaired individual would have been unethical. At the same time, critics insist that his ability to live independently, sell drugs, evade capture, and kill all these women meant that he was fully competent enough to face the consequences of his crimes. And the victims' families felt that life in prison wasn't enough either, believing that his horrific actions deserved the ultimate penalty. And that's why his case highlights such a complex intersection of mental illness, criminal responsibility, and justice. And I want to know what you guys think. Do you think that he should have kept the death penalty? Do you think that he got off easy? What are your thoughts? Do you think that people who have a mental illness should be spared leniency of death penalty? I would love to know what you guys think about that. The one thing that they did mention after the trial was done was Graham asked his lawyer if he could get his Cookie Monster doll back. I don't know if he got it back or not. I couldn't find anything on that. I doubt that he did, but who knows? Who knows? And that's just, it's crazy to me, like, how no one can ever know truly what's going on from somebody behind closed doors. They look like they're this calm, collected, nice person on the outside, but on the inside, they're a serial killer drug den runner. It's crazy. But Harrison Graham's crimes, they were gruesome, tragic, and preventable because of the several missed opportunities and systematic failures that allowed him to continue his killing spree undetected. Had any one of these factors been addressed sooner, at least one of his victims might still be alive today. While now he is still behind bars for life, he's still alive as well. His case will continue to serve as that reminder of mental health illnesses, addiction, and crime. But I don't think that there's enough going on about this story. I didn't know anything about this story. I don't know if you guys knew about this one before. It's not talked about enough, and I think that it should be talked about more. It's not, I could not find a lot of details. Very, very minimal details. And that's going to be it for our first one back. I appreciate all the love, support. I look forward to being on here regularly. If you have anything that you want me to research and talk about, let me know, and I will do it for you because I love doing that. I appreciate you all so much, and I'll see you again soon. Thank you so much.